The year is 118 AD. Dawn breaks over the eternal city, and the first rays of sunlight strike the golden roof of the Pantheon. Below, in the shadow of marble temples and towering aqueducts, a city of 1,000,000 souls begins to stir. This is Rome at the height of its power, a civilization so advanced that even today, 2,000 years later, we struggle to fully comprehend how they built what they built, how they lived as they lived, and how they transformed the ancient world into something that would echo through all of human history. But for centuries, much of this world remained hidden from us. The great structures crumbled. The daily routines faded into dust. The voices of ordinary Romans fell silent. We had ruins, yes, and fragments of text, but the living, breathing reality of ancient Rome seemed lost forever. Until now, through the power of artificial intelligence, through the painstaking analysis of archaeological data, ancient texts, and architectural remains, we are witnessing something extraordinary. We are watching ancient Rome come back to life before our eyes, recreated in stunning detail, from the engineering marvels that defied the laws of their time to the narrow streets where everyday Romans lived, worked, loved, and died. Walk with me now through these reconstructed streets. It is early morning, and the insulae, the apartment buildings that housed most of Rome's population, are already alive with activity. These structures rise 5, 6, sometimes 7 stories into the air, built of brick and concrete, a Roman invention that would change construction forever. The ground floors buzz with commerce. A baker pulls fresh loaves from his oven, the smell of bread mixing with the scent of olive oil from the shop next door. A fuller, a laundry worker, stamps on clothes in large vats filled with urine and water, the ammonia helping to clean the expensive togas of wealthy patrons. The noise is overwhelming. Children cry. Merchants shout. Carts rumble over stone streets, though they are only allowed during certain hours to prevent chaos. Above, in the cramped apartments, families wake in rooms no larger than a modern bedroom, sometimes housing 6 or 7 people. There is no running water up here, no toilets, no kitchens. Cooking is done on small portable braziers, a constant fire hazard that frequently sends these wooden-floored buildings up in flames. Chamber pots are emptied out windows into the streets below, despite laws against it. This is the reality for 90% of Romans, a far cry from the marble palaces we often imagine when we think of ancient Rome. But step now from these narrow lanes into the Forum, and you enter another world entirely. Here, artificial intelligence has helped us reconstruct not just the buildings, but the very atmosphere of Roman public life. The Forum Romanum stretches before us, a vast open space surrounded by temples, basilicas, and government buildings. The Basilica Julia, where legal cases are heard, echoes with the voices of lawyers arguing before crowds of spectators. The Temple of Saturn housing the state treasury rises with imposing columns that have been painted in colors we only recently discovered. Through chemical analysis, reds and golds and deep blues that shock us because we have grown so accustomed to white marble. The engineering that made all of this possible staggers the mind. Beneath our feet runs an intricate system of sewers, the Cloaca Maxima, still functioning after more than 1,000 years. These channels carry waste and rainwater away from the city, emptying into the Tiber River. Above ground, 11 aqueducts bring fresh water from springs in the hills, flowing for miles, some underground, some on towering arch structures that still stand today. The water arrives at the city and is distributed through a complex system of pipes and fountains. Public fountains flow continuously in every neighborhood, free water for everyone, rich and poor alike. The wealthy have private pipes running directly into their homes, a luxury they pay taxes for, but even the poorest Roman never has to walk far for clean water. At the Baths of Trajan, we see Roman engineering and social life merge into something unprecedented in the ancient world. These are not merely places to bathe. They are vast complexes of heated rooms, cold plunge pools, exercise grounds, libraries, gardens, and meeting spaces. The hypocaust system, a Roman innovation, circulates hot air beneath the floors and through the walls, heating the rooms to different temperatures. Slaves tend the furnaces day and night. Citizens arrive in the early afternoon, for the baths do not open until after the public business of the morning is complete. They strip in the changing rooms, store their clothes in niches in the walls, and begin their journey through the complex. First comes exercise in the palestra, the open-air courtyard. Men wrestle, lift weights, play ball games. Then they proceed to the tepidarium, the warm room, where they begin to sweat. Next, the caldarium, the hot room, where steam rises and bodies glisten. Slaves called capsari scrape the sweat, oil, and dirt from their master's skin with curved metal tools called strigils. From the intense heat, bathers move to the frigidarium, the cold room, plunging into pools that shock the system and invigorate the body. But beyond the physical cleansing, the baths serve another purpose. They are where deals are made, news is exchanged, friendships are formed. A poor man can stand in the same pool as a senator, at least in theory, though the complex social hierarchies of Rome are never truly absent. The Colosseum, or the Flavian Amphitheater as the Romans knew it, represents perhaps the most impressive feat of Roman engineering and entertainment. Through digital reconstruction, we now understand its mechanisms in ways that would have been impossible before. The building seats 50,000 people, and it can be filled or emptied in a matter of minutes through a sophisticated system of staircases and exits called vomitoria. The seats are strictly organized by social class. The emperor and senators sit closest to the arena floor. Behind them, the equestrian class. Higher up, ordinary citizens. At the very top, standing room for the poor, women, and slaves. But the real marvel lies beneath the arena floor. The hypogeum, an underground network of tunnels and chambers, houses the machinery of spectacle. Animals in cages, gladiators waiting their turn, stage sets for the elaborate hunts and battles staged in the arena. A system of pulleys, winches, and trapdoors allows scenery to be changed and animals to be raised suddenly to the arena floor, creating moments of surprise and terror for the audience. On certain occasions, the arena is even flooded with water through a system of pipes from mock naval battles, though this becomes less common as the underground structures grow more complex. The games themselves are brutal. There is no denying this. Men fight to the death, or at least until one can no longer continue. Criminals are executed in elaborate, theatrical ways, sometimes forced to play roles in mythological scenes that end in their real deaths. Animals, exotic beasts from across the empire, lions and bears and elephants, are set against each other or against armed men. The crowd roars. They cheer for their favorite gladiators, men who are simultaneously slaves and celebrities. They eat food purchased from vendors who circulate through the stands. The emperor watches, and his reaction matters. His thumb up or down, though historians now debate whether this gesture was as simple as popular culture suggests. Why? Why such spectacle, such violence? The answer lies in the very nature of Rome itself. This is an empire built on conquest, sustained by military might, held together by the promise of order and the threat of force. The games remind every person in that audience of Rome's power, of the fate of those who resist, of the exotic reaches of the empire from which these animals come. But they also serve as a gift from the powerful to the people, a show of generosity, of the emperor's wealth and concern for his subjects' entertainment. Bread and circuses, the formula for keeping a population content. Yet daily life in Rome was not all spectacle and public works. In the workshops of the Subura, the city's most crowded district, craftsmen pursued their trades with skills passed down through generations. Here, artificial intelligence has helped us recreate not just the buildings, but the actual processes of Roman manufacturing. The blacksmith hammers iron into tools and weapons on his anvil, using techniques that would remain largely unchanged for over 1,000 years. The potter shapes clay on his wheel, creating the amphorae that will carry wine and oil across the Mediterranean. The jeweler works gold and precious stones into rings and necklaces for wealthy patrons. His tiny shop no more than a hole in the wall, yet producing works of remarkable delicacy. The women of Rome, often forgotten in grand histories, moved through this world with more freedom than their Greek counterparts, but less than their Celtic neighbors to the north. Wealthy Roman women could own property, run businesses, and exert significant influence behind the scenes, though they could not vote or hold public office. They managed vast households of slaves, oversaw the education of children, and attended social functions that were crucial to their husbands' political careers. Poorer women worked in shops, in the baths, as midwives and wet nurses, spinners and weavers. The wool trade employed countless women, their fingers moving ceaselessly to produce the cloth that clothed an empire. At the great libraries, the one at Trajan's Forum, recreated now in perfect digital detail, we see Rome's intellectual life preserved in scrolls and codices. Scholars copy texts by hand, the only way to reproduce knowledge. They read Greek philosophy, Roman history, technical manuals on agriculture and architecture. The empire's literacy rate is higher than it will be again in Europe until the Renaissance, perhaps 20 to 30% of urban populations able to read to some degree. In the provinces, Roman culture spreads through these texts, through the Latin language that will one day evolve into French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, Romanian. The Roman road system, perhaps more than any single achievement, demonstrates how engineering served empire. Through satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar, modern technology has mapped the full extent of these roads, over 50,000 miles of paved highways connecting every corner of Rome's domain. The roads are built to last, multiple layers of stone and gravel, cambered for drainage, edged with curbs. Every 1,000 paces, a milestone marks the distance to Rome, for all roads truly do lead to Rome, the golden milestone in the Forum Romanum from which all distances are measured. Armies march on these roads at a pace that will not be matched until the age of railways. Messengers carry imperial edicts at speeds up to 50 miles per day on horseback. Merchants transport goods in carts and wagons. Ideas flow along these stone arteries, Christianity among them, spreading from Jerusalem to Rome and outward to the empire's furthest reaches. But even as we marvel at these achievements, we must confront the foundation upon which they were built. Rome was a slave society. Perhaps 20 to 30% of the population in Italy were enslaved, human beings treated as property, with no legal rights, subject to their master's absolute authority. They built the aqueducts, the roads, the temples. They worked the mines that produced the silver and gold that fueled the economy. They served in wealthy households, cooked the food, cleaned the clothes, raised the children. Some were treated with relative kindness, even freed and made citizens after years of service. Others endured lives of unimaginable brutality, working themselves to death in quarries and fields. The turning point, though Romans could not see it, was already approaching. The empire had reached its greatest extent under Trajan. The conquests that brought wealth and slaves were slowing. The military that protected the borders was growing more expensive. The political system that had once allowed for orderly succession was breaking down into military coups and civil wars. Plagues would come, killing millions. Barbarian invasions would intensify. Economic troubles would mount. The Western Empire would fall, though the Eastern would continue for another 1,000 years as Byzantium. Yet what Rome built, physically and culturally, would never truly die. The concrete of the Pantheon's dome remains the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world, a formula lost and not rediscovered until modern times. The legal principles developed in Roman courts would become the foundation of law across Europe and beyond. The Latin language would live on, not just in the Romance languages, but in the scientific, medical, and legal terminology still used today. The idea of citizenship, of rights and responsibilities, of republican government, would inspire revolutions and republics across the centuries. Through artificial intelligence, through the careful reconstruction of every street and building, every tool and technique, we have not merely recreated ancient Rome. We have remembered it, brought it back from the shadows of history and into the light of understanding. We see now that the Romans are not so different from us, despite the vast gulf of time. They worried about fires in their apartments, about the price of bread, about their children's futures. They built things meant to last forever, even as they must have known that nothing lasts forever. They believed they lived at the center of the world, in a civilization that would never end. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson we can draw from walking through these recreated streets, from standing in the shadow of their monuments, from understanding the complexity of their daily lives. Every civilization believes it is permanent, that its achievements will stand for all time, that its way of life is the only possible way. Rome reminds us that even the most powerful empire, the most sophisticated society, the most impressive engineering, is ultimately temporary, a moment in the long arc of human history. But it also reminds us of something else, something more hopeful, that what humans create, what we build together, what we learn and discover and preserve, can outlive us, can speak across the centuries, can inspire those who come after to build something even greater, to reach even higher, to remember always that we are all just passing through this world. And what matters most is not how long we endure, but what we leave behind for those who will walk these streets long after we are dust.